Welcome to Storytelling with Huwey Bear Stories. Remember to subscribe to this channel if you are interested in a channel that brings you audio fantasy. All stories are written and published by Huwey Bear. This audio is the fifth part of the urban legend of Nico, and so our story begins. A midsummer sun had boiled the lands around Sundale. It had left a musky feeling in the air of high humidity, making a difficult quest. Jeff Piper, the Saddleman, tasted beads of his own sweat as they drizzled down from his forehead, giving moisture to dry lips. His posse hadn't washed for days. Together, they carried an aroma of mud and dirt that blended into stifling body odor. A stench from their horses intensified the scent. They had got used to the pong that materialized from their overused horseback. Many hooves galloped into a dry mud, thundering towards Sundale by way of the eastern pass. Arrogant tracks were left on the pathway. Only long wheat fields on either side of the path provided cover to the exposed indication of the group's existence. They didn't care for revelation. Soon it wouldn't matter that they wandered freely in an area where they were outlawed. No power could warrant their capture. Not now. Not anymore. The group no longer needed to hide away from society. Not from the new one they would create. Sundale was weak and lightly enforced. The Pepper Gang vowed to become the new power to govern the broken town. The sunset had just begun. Shades of light disappeared behind the Snowtop mountains. The yellow texture of the wheat fields sluggishly darkened by the shift in time. The day's light was at the start of its rotation into night. Sundale will never see the light again. A new dawn presides. The villagers wouldn't be able to turn to Canton for aid. The closest city lay miles north from the Snowtops, too far for their governors to intervene. Sundale is alone. Isolation is a cruel reality of the life of an outlaw. The lawbreakers were used to the cold mountains where their home resided, not the stifling warmth common nearer Sundale. Shortly, it will be cold again. A new type of chill will encompass the broken town. Pensively as he rode his mount, Jeff Piper observed his surroundings. The vegetation was a pleasant surprise. Wide-stretching wheat fields were majestic to him. For 4 years, the Pepper Gang had lived away from civilization, becoming used to grey rocks notable around the Snowtops. Piper was seeing colours forgotten to him, shades that he hadn't seen for years. Colour was one of the many beauties they had taken away. His sight, his environment, his way of life. It was taken away by those who were born better off, with greater status, more money, a home, and a best platform for success. But success is measured in so many ways. Jeff's mother was a whore, a woman who sold her dignity for a bit of cash. Prostitution had always been rife within Sundale. It was the reason for his birth. The Saddleman was fashioned by a man's desire and a woman's desperation for cash. He had no idea who his father was, no idea where he came from. It was a gut-quenching stab, evolving into a concealed scar. For years, Jeff had no one, no friends, no family, a life not worth living. He crumbled to the pressure of being alone, collapsing into a shadow of his potential. Self-pity was his disease, leading to a self-defeat. The streets attracted him, as he believed someone might see him. The assumption was wrong. For a year, thousands would pass, refusing to bat an eyelid, discounting him. Humanity scorned down at a broken man. Those in a similar situation saw him for who he was, a human. The homeless are a close-knit family. It's the only way they may survive. It took time for Jeff to figure out how networking worked on the streets. It cost favours and friendships, through broken loyalties and trust. It was whilst he was establishing his reputation when he heard talk of the Pepper Gang. He only heard whispers and mumblings, rumours flying from mouth to mouth. It fueled the gossip on the alleys. He knew to be different. All he needed to do was avoid gossiping back. Yet he used all talk as a source for information. It allowed him to understand the network better, allowing him to spot the links of importance. Soon, he discovered the Pepper Gang were a real entity. Tyler Beckett was a friend Jeff made during this troubled period. The two met after a barter of goods, a blanket for boots. Tyler was an odd man, a man who got things done in a weird way. He was awkward in his interactions, but never fell short of confidence. It was a surprise when Jeff discovered he was in liaison with a notorious posse. Tyler was completing odd jobs for the Pep Gang. The information escaped the man's lips after Jeff had completed a robbery for the friend as a favour. Shortly after letting his secret slip, Jeff was also doing trades for the Pepper Gang. The gang were a unique entity, unchained from the restriction of bureaucracy and the ties of social norms. They were an assembly that utilised the potential in the homeless, a group willing to give a life to those who had nothing. It cost time, jobs, and tasks. With each great exchange, greater commitment was required. Then came the final job, the make or break, the judgment of worth. Recruitment was decided from chosen pairs, brothers, or even a couple. Only one would receive membership. Jeff remembered the contract he received from a woman he did not know. He was woken up whilst he slept. The mysterious female figure of the night will forever be embedded in his mind. The lady who stalked the night wore a black fur coat that engulfed all the features of her upper face. The lower part was consumed by a red bandana. Beneath the coat she wore a navy blue silk. The tone in her voice, combined with the confidence she walked with, suggested she was someone of high importance. But Jeff knew he was facing a killer of the night. That night, she had come to kill, but not by her hand. The woman was only the harvester, handing out a contract of demise. Handle this letter with care and speed. Your instructions are of the essence. Do not waste time, as yours may be ticking closer to death. She swept into the darkness before a reply could be processed. Jeff recalled his shaking hands as they nervously opened the letter, swiftly and privately. Inside was a piece of paper with one sentence. You never need to go hungry again. Consume Tyler Beckett, or be killed by him. Bring his body back to the back of Sundale's grand clock tower as the chime strikes 12 times. The Pepper Gang. There was no hesitation, no reluctance. Jeff knew what was necessary for him to advance closer to his awakening ambitions. He had been dead for too long. He couldn't face it again, especially not permanently. Slaughtering Tyler was a massive relief for him. There was no fight in his former friend, no way for him to contest Jeff, who got him in his sleep. With his death, a new life was beginning to form. The Pepper Gang told him he would never need to go hungry again, that he would never need to buy meat again. The words confused him at first, until they started to roast the man he just killed. Then he understood. Being homeless, he always held a starvation. When his teeth ripped into human flesh for the first time, that hunger went extinct. He fueled a need, a desperation that silently developed over a year. No one helped him off the streets. His view on humanity became distorted. That day made him see things clear. His outlook changed, making a better match for the Pepper Gang. You take what you want. You take what you must, to survive, to live. You don't care for judgment or of humanity. You rule through fear and your own needs. Jeff had finally found his family, his commitment, the Pepper Gang. We have company, fellas. The words that snapped Jeff from his memory came from Pharaoh Ellis. She was the most experienced female member in the gang, having been recruited 8 years ago. The woman wore tan fur rags that dangled to her shins. Her outfit was darkened by black mud and discoloured by dark red blood. Her jawline was visible, agile and lean. The chin was her strongest feature, pointing from her face in a noticeable fashion. Her eyes were black, matching her jet, gloomy, greasy long hair. She was a woman of animosity in every action, command, sight, and smell. Riddled with warts over her hands, her lack of hygiene was evident. She smiled at the sight of a mob atop a small hill, a single tree protruding from the incline. Her front teeth were missing. Only 4 lay rooted inside her empty gums. They were rotten, stained black and yellow, covered with a thick plaque. Pharaoh Ellis was the first to rear up her horse, putting back the strings around her horse's neck, bringing it to a stop with a shrieking knee. "Shall we approach with our bandanas?" Philip Townsley was the second to speak. He was a man who appeared and acted as a gentleman, but it was nothing less a lie. Looks are deceiving. Although Philip was able to keep himself moderately tidy and clean in the wilderness, he was possibly the most monstrous within the gang. It was an unusual start into the practice of cannibalization for the man. He began eating his own kind after a row with his younger brother. He had no siblings left after the confrontation, only a belly full of meat. Townsley was the only member within the gang who sacrificed high status for a new life. He was born from a family of fortune within the city of Rumor, a prosperous city northwest of Canton, past the Snowtop mountains. He came to the Pepper Gang's attention after a series of disappearances spread across the local papers of the city. The authorities did not spot the pattern of a serial killer, but Osen did. Philip almost slayed Jeff, who was assigned to recruit the man. Jeff shocked him, unmasking his presence after witnessing a murder in an alley of Rumor. Townsley was good at covering his tracks. Jeff had been tracking the killer for 33 days. Townsley's pattern of behaviour was simple once understood. He targeted travellers, people who visited the town from afar, never to return. "Enough with those rags. I won't cower behind a mask." It was Jeff Layson who responded. He was possibly the hairiest man you would ever set your eyes upon. It was ironic. Half his face was hidden under his beard. It covered the bottom half of his face and dangled to his chest. He had a mop of slimy hair that hung in dirty strands from his head. Hair even protruded from his ears and his nose. His monobrow lay as thick as a moustache. Layson hadn't washed for 8 years. Jeff had felt more appetizing than rotten bodies. Sundale's wanted posters named him Jeff the Dirt Layson. These rags spark a fear to those who accuse you of turd. It's our image, our fear, and our advantage over everyone. We need them. With them on, they can't hold us back. The man who responded looked out of place due to his youthful age. He waved his bandana towards Jeff as he spoke, showing passion in the belief of its representation. His fresh style made him look younger than his age of 25. He wore clothing seen by the younger generations, brighter colours and more loosely fitted materials. His hat was tied to his back, rather than on his head. He had a plain face with soft, small features that were narrow and small. A nose lay straight yet wide, looking mismatched compared to his sharp, pointed jaw. As he spoke, his teeth appeared. They were jagged and loose, only a few years away from aging Billy significantly. His hairline showed signs of receding, looking thin in the corner of his forehead. The man's name was Billy Hugh, his fugitive name, the Widower. Jeff favoured Billy, knowing what he offered was low risk yet high reward strategy. It was his efficiency that had interested him. It was amusing how Billy played with his food. He targeted partners, widowing one and consuming the other. It's quite a mass of people. Where was my invitation to this gathering? It was Lacey Saunders who interjected, changing the subject. The man peered intensely, staring with a grin that brightened his features full of delight. The place is full of life. Let's tip some of the water out of the bottle. He licked his lips as he spoke, peering towards what he was sensing to be his next meal. I don't know. It looks like a speech of some kind. Have you ever heard of them people that spread the idea of God? Pharaoh Ellis added. She sounded naive whilst remembering the name of her description. Will Fritz took advantage of Ellis's innocence. He looked at Ellis as though she was crazy for not knowing the name for what she was describing, and spoke in a highly patronizing tone, whilst looking around at the others with an open mouth to communicate his disbelief in her lack of intelligence. You mean a preacher, right? Yeah, that's it, a preacher. I think we're about to witness a preaching, fellas. Ellis was amused by that. She wasn't a religious person, and it tickled her that others believed so strongly to try and convince others. Oh, shut up, woman. Stop spitting bollocks from your gob. There is no God but the gunner strapped to my belt, and the mercy of my finger. Emmett High responded with intense emotions. He was feeling highly aggravated. No one would be stupid enough to spurt lies to a twitching finger, riddled by the temptation of annoyance, he mused. Usually the man was calm, but he had been consumed by Ellis's naivety throughout the entire trip. His finger had twitched to his pistol as though he was going to unload, and his other fist clenched tight, holding onto the horse's reins. I wasn't talking to you, Em. I was talking to this gentleman. You should open your ears to him more often. He can teach you how to treat a woman proper. If he keeps his eyes open, I will show him how to shoot a bitch, Emmett mumbled back. Enough! Jeff bellowed. Will Fritz, who was beside him, jumped due to the ferocity of anger that came through the yell. That's no preacher, and this is no rallying speech, Jeff continued. Can't you see the hangman's noose attached to the tree over there? During the build-up and tension, Jeff had silently observed the gathering and had spotted elements that the others hadn't. This is an execution. Thomas Mooney, who was usually quiet in these situations, had released his thoughts in a whisper as though he was talking to himself. The interjection had stumbled Jeff, who peered angrily at the man who interrupted. You're right, Tom, just not the one they expected. Soon it won't matter. It won't matter if we go in with our bandanas. It won't matter if we go in with our faces. It won't matter if we kill them all or let them live. Soon, we will be top of the pile. We will be the ones pulling the strings. We will be the group with the power to execute. Is that today? We are almost there. That is the fact of the situation. We have almost made it to a position we have always wanted to be. We can't slip. I'm not going to feed you bullshit. You know me. I tell you how it is, how it could be. Our plan may go wrong. It's unlikely at this point, but a loss is still a possibility. This is the best chance we will ever have, so we take it. You're right, Layson. We no longer need to hide. Did we ever? We were outlawed and we adapted. We didn't hide, we survived. I understand. I understand what it's been like portrayed as a monster. We ain't monsters. Or takers. We take like them. They took our home from us. Do you know what we take back? Their lives, their livelihood, their way of living. I'm done hiding in the freezing cold mountains. I want my home back. I want normality. But more than anything, I want our way to be the norm. This rag is our way. We are the Pepper Gang. We ain't common folk like them. We are above all that. So what say you? Let's go and execute our authority. Let's show them who really governs Sundale. With that, Jeff calmly and carefully tied his red bandana around his mouth. He looked and grimaced towards the crowd, galloped towards his targets. The others watched on for a few seconds, taking in the inspiration they just received, before flying themselves to catch up with their leader. All of them wore the red bandana that symbolized the Pepper Gang. They edged towards the gathering with smiles and grins under their masks, knowing what the bandana meant. I heard the man to stand. It was a pain to look up at the crowd that jeered in excitement for his death. He was held by either side, under the arms, by his captors. They had forced him out of his chains he had become so accustomed to, pulled him out of the wagon he had journeyed in, thrown him face first into the mud before lifting him to his feet. The hands of strength tightened under his armpits, squeezing in agony, sapping away the little energy he had left. His strength had been sucked away, leached through a lack of food over the many months he had been caught. His crime wasn't as they said. Yes, he committed a robbery, a heist gone wrong, but he hadn't killed the inhabitants of Widow's Sleep as they said. Sundale had erupted into a craze of blame since the sheriffs left for their great exhibition. Order exploded into a non-existence. Within a few weeks, his cell door was unlocked by an angry mob looking for someone to blame. It wasn't me, he tried to tell them, but they refused to listen. He was born unlucky, born with a different skin tone that had harassed him with misfortune throughout his years. He knew that was why he was chosen. It was a relief it was almost over. The two men that had him under the armpits dragged him through the crowd. He felt everything, but nothing hurt anymore. They spat, kicked, punched, and jeered at him as he was brought up the mini hill of mud. He looked up at the tree. It was the only peaceful thing he in sight. It was the bright, green, majestic. The glare of the sunset shone in a way that enhanced the tree as though it was full of fresh life. Something that was so precious to him right now. Branches stretched in such a way as though it was extended an invitation, offering a taste of its peace. A warm hug in the chilling moments. The noose hung from the lowest branch. Why have they already tied the noose, he pondered, a smirk of judgment crossing his face. The knot looked tight. It hung down in the shadow of the tree. The man felt relaxed as he realized he would become attached to something calm. They pushed him down towards his knees, right by the dangling rope. The third man who had stalked his walk stopped, faced the crowd, took a breath that drew the mob quiet, and commenced his speech. Wyatt Beckett, today you are condemned as an offering for our Lord, an offering for atonement. Humanity relishes for the sword that will swipe away flesh to empty your blood. Our good Lord demands justice to be served for the history of your crimes. You showed no mercy in your actions, no regard for human life as you took away something so valuable for the satisfaction of your desires. But now, we fulfill our Lord's desires, to remove you from this world, to empty this land of an evil. Something was wrong, or only Wyatt could feel it. The ground his hands pressed into rumbled in response. A vibration stirred the ground, disturbing Wyatt's ease as the rumble grew in intensity. Evil will never prevail for as long as I stand ready to give the Lord's judgment. The crowd started to gasp as the vibration turned to clear sound of the hooves that thundered towards their position. The man who had spoken turned to peek towards the other side of the hill he stood upon. A bullet exploded into his face, throwing him to the floor. The woman screamed before the children started to cry. "It's them! It's the pepper gang!" one lady screamed, after spotting a red bandana. The hooves circled the crowd as people dropped to the fire of gunfire that ripped into flesh. Those who tried to pull out their weapons from beneath their clothing were executed with deadly accuracy. Wyatt felt freedom as the hands that squeezed so tight began to loosen their grip. The crowd were caught off guard, exploding into anarchy. Any form of rebellion against the men with red bandanas was quenched. "Shut up, you filthy hose!" the voice boomed from one of the men with a mask as he kicked out towards the screaming lady. Slowly, the crowd began to quiet down, shocked emotions settling into quiet. Well, that wasn't such a warm welcome, was it? The tallest man with the darkest horse spoke. "You know me as the Saddleman. Now, let me show you guys why you call me the Saddleman." The man speaking swiftly dismounted as he bellowed authority. "You see, I was born with a normal name, with a normal life like you guys." He circled around the group with open body language, inviting people in an arrogant way. "That was until I killed my first man. No, I didn't just kill him, I ate the poor guy. I ate the meat from his bones and enjoyed every second of his taste. But where is the fun in that? You see, I have always been a collector. I used to collect coins when you guys squandered me on the streets. Then I collected clothes, just to keep myself warm at night. The third thing I collected meant that I was gone, meant that my life was over. You offered me a noose to hang. I refused the hanging. The Saddleman had walked towards Wyatt as he spoke, grabbing him by his hair. Now, you guys were going to let this guy receive that very same fate. I can't allow that. The same way I couldn't allow the rope to dangle me. The Pepper Gang won't allow that. Not anymore, not now. We call the shots in Sundale. We choose who lives and who dies. Why are you all crying and whimpering? You will all live past this day. I want this message to spread, and you're all going to be my messengers. The Pepper Gang have taken over. Now, the third thing I collect is a sport for me, but maybe monstrous for you. It's hair. Hair of all the people I kill. He walked over to the man who made the speech only moments earlier, cutting strands of his hair out using a knife that gleamed out of his shelf. Now, this hair doesn't belong to that corpse. It's mine. You see this? Make sure your hair doesn't become mine as well. He walked over to his horse, dragging Wyatt with him. He threw Wyatt over the back of his horse whilst mounting himself. I am the Saddleman for this reason. He held out the blonde strands of hair before opening the straw bag on the back of his saddle. Human hair spilled out. The bag was packed with hair strands of different colours, of young and old. Don't make me put your hair in this bag. It was a chilling warning that left the crowd broken. Come on, let's hit this town, Jeff shouted the command to the rest of the Pepper Gang with animalistic ferocity. He spun his horse and charged back onto the eastern pass, leading towards Sundale, his true prize. Thank you again for listening to this story by Huwey Bear Stories. If you enjoyed it, remember to hit that subscribe and like button. Spread it. Send it to your friends. See what they think of it. And this one's taken me about a month to write. I'm sorry it took so long to get down onto YouTube. I'm going to try and do the next one a bit quicker. All the best, Huwey Bear Stories.